Hello and welcome back to The Note. It's time for the world to focus its attention on Rio de Janeiro in Brazil because the Olympics are about to start. Plainly, it's a great festival that all the world can enjoy, and it's a great honour for Brazil to get to host it. However, what I'd like to explain is that the Olympics can be a curse for emerging cities. Now, this is the fourth time that the Olympics have gone to a large emerging country. Before this, we've had Mexico City in 1968, perhaps best remembered for Bob Beeman's long jump and the Black Power salute. Korea, Seoul in 1988, perhaps best remembered for Ben Johnson and his ban for steroid abuse. And of course, 8 years ago, Beijing in China, best remembered for the extraordinary architecture that was sprouted around the city for those games. Now, in each case, the games were in many ways a coming out party for a country that was at that point the darling of international investors, which had grown remarkably compared to the rest of the emerging world over the preceding years. And as you can see, certainly in the cases of Mexico and Korea, those games acted as something of a watershed. After the games, growth was much slower, and in both cases, that gave on to serious financial crises, several of them in the case of Mexico. In the case of China, the effect isn't quite so clear yet, but there have been obvious, quite desperate measures, it appears, to avert a financial crisis. And if we take a look at this chart, which shows you how imports and export growth has moved over the years, you can see that there does appear to be a very important inflection point around about those games in 2008. There were desperation measures, but that growth has fallen very significantly, having peaked around about the games. Now, is this just a coincidence? No, it isn't. Those games, the award of the games in many ways does recognise growth. It tends to suggest that the growth is in the price. Holding the games in itself, particularly for smaller countries like Mexico and Korea, involves a lot of investment, which will help growth, and also involves a lot of debt, which will mean greater problems thereafter. Now, does this phenomenon apply to Brazil? Well, certainly not perfectly, because Brazilian stocks, the Brazilian economy has been in trouble for quite a few years. However, if we take a look at this chart, where we look at how the Brazilian stock market, the Bovespa index, has done compared to the rest of the world since 2002, you can see that the phenomenon works perfectly if we instead look at when Rio was awarded the Games, which was October 2009. That's the point at which Brazil received its recognition, and as you can see, it's almost perfectly at the top of the market. Extraordinary surge ahead of the award of the Games, buoyed by optimism about the Brazilian government, about the commodities boom, and a collapse since, as commodity prices have gone into reverse and as Brazilian politics have got ever uglier. Now, at this point, it does look as though Brazil could cheat the Olympic curse, because if anything, we are now into a recovery mode. If you take a look at what's happened to the Brazilian currency and to the stock market over the last 12 months, there's really been quite a strong rebound, among the best performing markets in the world over that period. And there is reason to believe that we might have seen catharsis. If your former president is arrested, if your sitting president is impeached, that looks like things have come to a crescendo. However, perhaps we shouldn't be too confident about that, and perhaps for those who care about the future of Brazil, these games are doubly important. If they go off well, if they show a united, strong, healthy country to the rest of the world, that really could help buoy sentiment and continue the rally. If we see social unrest, if they don't go well, then that could be a cue for another round of great angst before Brazil stages its recovery. Either way, I'm sure we should all enjoy the games, wish Brazil the best, and perhaps not think too much about the fact that in 4 years' time, the games are going to Tokyo in Japan.